Pre-Grand City, Mexico, the 4 practice in.
Happened what?
Hello everybody and welcome back to the P1 podcast with Matt and Tommy late night edition. That's right, we are locked in right now. It is 20 to 1 in the morning and we've just had some of the most relevant practice sessions we've ever seen. Before we actually dive into what happened on track, the one big thing coming into this weekend, McLaren have appealed the decision. I'm not sure if there's been, I know that they'd had the discussion between FP1 and FP2, I think it is.
Yeah.
Whether they've
Still
actually
waiting.
Yeah, we've not seen anything right now. Now, for those of you that aren't fully aware of what's going on, obviously they're discussing the Verstappen-Norris incident at turn 12 at COTA last weekend. But the only way a team can appeal is if they bring new relevant evidence to the table that the FIA did not have when making the decision of whether to give Verstappen a penalty or not, or whether Norris should have got a penalty. But for me, it does seem whether McLaren are trying to almost keep this in the limelight. Maybe they reckon this is going to get thrown out, but we keep the discussion about the ruling maybe needing changing.
Yes, my first reaction was if they care about 3 points that much, they probably should have switched Piastri and Norris at Monza. But
oh my God, Tommy, this is okay. It's late night, Tommy. Everybody, buckle yourselves in.
But that being said, I guess if they do appeal, the one positive that could come out of it is that they do clear up the rules. Because while I think Verstappen was doing what he did within the rules, and we kind of had this discussion of like he plays the rule book at its game. I think that something has to change with overtaking rules anyway, because they can be used and abused. That is something Max does so well, but it also ruins the racing spectacle.
Interesting to see what comes of this. I don't think anything was going to come of it, but let's see. Let's go to free practice 1 then, shall we? Where we actually got some representative running compared to FP2, which we will get onto shortly. The big moment for this has to be the Albon and Behrman collision. A bizarre one, but one that can quite easily happen, I think, around Mexico City. It's a very fast S's sweeping section in the middle sector. In my opinion, it is literally just unfortunate, but it is on Albon. He's the one that lost the car. He saw Behrman. He continues the speed. He continues the momentum. Gets a little bit of a swapper and crashes into Behrman, who is completely off the racing line. Don't get me wrong. It's not an easy part to get out of the way, but he is off the racing line. Yeah,
I found it very strange how the commentary team in particular in the UK seemed to blame Behrman quite a lot and kept going, oh, Behrman will learn from this. And I thought, is it really more Behrman? I think it's more Albon, personally, for going off. Obviously, as people that have never driven a Formula One car in anger and absolutely, the thing is that we will never know what it's like to kind of lose grip from a Formula One car. There's that talk of as soon as you back out, you lose grip. But it's the person who's kind of driving to not lose the car and stay controlled in such a way. We've seen so many close calls in practice sessions with cars going slowly and maybe going offline, but we rarely see someone actually lose the car and then crash into someone. So I think it's a bit of an extreme reaction to say it's on Behrman.
Yeah, completely agree. I think it was unfair. Albon, in the heat of the moment, said, "What an idiot" or something to those words by the fact that Behrman didn't get out of the way. But you have so many moments where there are near misses and drivers getting in the way. It's practice at the end of the day. Question from P1 Patreon member Alan Enderpay: does Albon become more accident prone when he is under pressure from a faster teammate? Seems that way, doesn't it? I feel as though we're kind of this free practice. If this was just its own one, then I would say, whatever, chuck this in the bin. We don't need to talk about it. But we've seen a lot more mistakes from Albon since Franco Colapinto has come into that seat. And I feel as though Albon's gone from comfortable, driving at 95%, getting a few great results here and there with Williams when the car's been good and he's had a Sargent or a Latifi next to him. He's now driving at 101, 102%, trying to just sort of shush Franco Colapinto, who's making all of the headlines at the moment, and it's causing these mistakes.
Yeah, it's really poor timing for Albon to have another one of these incidents because, he had the big crash, didn't he, in Melbourne, and we kind of backed him and said, well, at the end of the day, he's the number one driver and is doing a fantastic job. We didn't really think anything of it at the time because he was delivering, but now he's off the back of a few races, and unfortunately, and unfortunately for Alex, he knows more than anyone how you're only as good as your last race when he had that torrid time at Red Bull, and he's unfortunately been one of the many drivers that's kind of felt the wrath of that and how difficult it is to kind of get out of when your career's spiraling. So the pressure builds up, and he really needs to kind of have a good race and quick, I think, and do something kind of spectacular.
Yeah, the narrative can change oh so quickly in Formula One, from Albon, the underdog, in the Williams, he's saved his career after the torrid time at Red Bull. Franco Colapinto comes in, and all of a sudden we're questioning just how good that Williams has been over the last few seasons. Question from Joey Hansberry. If an F2 driver is taking part in F1 practice and does something that would be punishable by 5 or 10 place grid penalty, how would the penalty be served, as they would not be competing in the race? So for this one, it's very simple. That driver would carry that penalty for the next time that they take part in a Formula One session. If Ollie Bearman was penalised, Charles Leclerc's not getting a 5-place grid penalty. Do not worry. I'm certainly not worrying, because that is not the case. So yeah, it's as simple as carrying it on their driver record.
Indeed, yeah, because Schwartzman actually did get a 5-place penalty, which is funny because he's not a Formula One driver, and I guess you could argue is very unlikely to be a Formula One driver unless some very extreme circumstances. So he basically has a 5-place grid penalty for if he ever joins Formula One.
Let's go to free practice 2 then. And it was a much more different free practice 2. Firstly, because it was a 90-minute session rather than a 60, but because also it was a Pirelli new tyre test for 2025, bringing C6 tyres and all kinds of things to the equation. And essentially, Formula One teams don't want to actually do this test at any other point. They say they haven't got time to do it. So then the agreement is to just chuck it in a practice session one time, which is not the best, I would say, from a fan's perspective, to watch a completely irrelevant session.
Yawn then, and then decided against it because it's actually.
You actually are tired. Yeah, let's try not to yawn through the podcast, Tommy, as much as you're feeling it, because yeah, it was irrelevant. They have to run a certain amount of mileage on the tyres, and it was only 10-15 minutes towards the end when the drivers unlocked a brand new medium if they wanted to go on it. So we're sort of going into tomorrow, FP3 having, I would say, more importance than most FP3s, I'd say, because we usually get a kind of an idea, don't we, from free practice 2, but I would say it's been quite the uninformative session.
It's uninformative, but I guess the one positive, if you look at it, going into tomorrow is
Ferrari's on top.
Well, what's funny actually is that Yuki Tsunoda, after you made that joke of can't wait for Yuki Tsunoda to be on the podium after I said biggest flop, and he's finished P3 in both sessions, which of course it is, like you say, not representative, but it keeps us guessing into tomorrow, which is exciting because going into a new session into FP3, it's almost like right before qualifying, it's like, oh, what's the order? But then even FP3 this year has kept us guessing just because the order's so close.
Question from Polski Polak _2. What is the problem at Merck? Ding, ding, ding. Let's ask the question of what is the problem at Merck? Of course, George Russell having that crash starting into that S's section. We've seen crashes there before, haven't we? And it's another one for George, sadly, which is not great for him. In terms of not learning a huge amount, I don't think it's the worst session to have crashed out on. Maybe he just didn't want to be on the tyres. Maybe he's like, nah, screw it. Can't be asked to do this Pirelli tyre test. Stick me in the wall. Lovely jubbly. But in all seriousness, not ideal for George to have had a big crash. Great to see him walk away from it okay. But yeah.
Indeed. If you actually count Formula One in days of running, that's 3 crashes in 3 days, if you like, because George crashed in quali, Hamilton crashed in the race, and then you go to practice of the next Grand Prix, and they're in the wall again. I do think, we said it in the last race, that Mercedes is such on a knife edge, and that is just how it is when you're trying to unlock performance, because they're clearly struggling. They're 4th in the constructors' title. They're nowhere near their main rivals, where they should be and where we're used to them being. So they're just trying to do everything they can, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were. It seems like they're really just trying everything, and with that, with the car on a knife edge, that's when you can so easily lose it.
So another talking point was Max Verstappen, who did 4 laps, I think, in free practice 2. He did 14, I believe, in free practice 1, both with some kind of engine problem. You're welcome. Maybe I've peaked too early with the biggest flop. That you're welcome wasn't to you, Tommy, obviously, as a Max fan, but to everybody that wants a close championship fight. P1 Patreon member Longo1996 says, can Matt keep picking Verstappen as the biggest flop for the rest of the races that we have this season? Look, we're not going to get ahead of ourselves. I'm sure Red Bull will fix whatever's going on overnight and into tomorrow. But it's not ideal, of course, for Max to have those problems and to be suffering with things to be of concern. But similar to George crashing in free practice 2, it's not the end of the world that they're missing the one session that's completely irrelevant in terms of tyres. Of course, you're going to learn some things, aren't you, about the car and how the aero is handling the higher altitude. And obviously there's different elements of the car that teams bring that they obviously want to test as well, with the cooling, and that being a massive problem around Mexico in particular. But they have another car going around. I'm sure they'll be learning with Perez out there and things like that. So let's see what tomorrow brings as to whether the flop will carry on over the entire weekend. But for a difficult Friday for Max.
Yeah, very difficult Friday. It is only practice, of course, but I guess in a strange way, if you were to pick one session that you'd get no running in, you'd probably pick this one, because most people, they say only a handful of cars actually did running on the medium tyre, and everyone else was using the non-relevant tyres. So, but it is still a big concern with reliability. They've had, of course, a car failure that's cost Max a very good result, maybe even a win in Australia.
I tell you what, Max DNFs. Leclerc wins this weekend. The championship back on door is blown off of its hinges, and then we are truly believing in Charles Leclerc. But we'll have to wait and see if that one unfolds. So, and to be fair, it was cool to see some of the new faces out on track in free practice 1, with Pato O'Ward out there as well, and Antonelli actually managing to do more than 2.5 laps without smashing the car to pieces, which was good to see. In
Drugovich was 0.2 off Stroll despite getting blocked, which would have been interesting if he'd completed his lap.
Imagine the scenes. That would have really put Stroll's seat under pressure, wouldn't it, Tommy?
Absolutely.
Absolutely not. Let's see. It's an unknown. We're shaking the box and seeing what comes out of it tomorrow. I can't wait. It's going to be awesome. And we'll see you very soon. Lots of love. Sweet dreams. Take care. Definitely sweet dreams. I am knackered. Goodbye.
Good night. Goodbye.
Good night. Tuck yourself in. Sweet dreams. Or good morning. Keep pushing. Drink water. Drink lots of water. Go to the gym.